Good evening, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the local custodians of land in which we meet this evening. I'm coming to you from Darkinjung Jung land at Avoca Beach and honour elders past, present and emerging. I'm Mel Wilkinson from the education team at the PHN. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being with us tonight. We've got a really great topic and really looking forward to this one. Just some housekeeping. As usual, we will have the poll pop up at the end of the session. I strongly encourage you to please complete that. It's the way we get our data and help us to look at further future events as well based on your feedback. We are being recorded and a copy of this will be available in our education library in the coming days. So if you've got any questions, we would love this to be really interactive and this is your opportunity to ask those questions. Please pop them into the questions box. We'll get to those at the end of the first presenter's session and then again at the end of the session if you think of any others. If any others come to mind, you can always email us and I can forward those to the presenters as well. So that would be education@thephn.com.au. So I'd like to welcome, Ellen's here tonight with us as well. Welcome, Ellen. Thank you for being here. She's from the PHN and she's from the Integrated Care Team. Is that right, Ellen, isn't it? Yeah. And welcome to Trent Watson and Damien Goff. So we're going to start off with Trent. Trent is the CEO for Ethos Health and he's also a board member with the PHN. So I'm going to hand over to you, Trent. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So welcome everyone. My topic today is our journey in regards to in-house technology development that has enabled us as a small business to compete on a bigger business scale. So I hope you take some things away from our journey. It's certainly not complete, but yeah, and hopefully I'll just talk through some of the wins, but some of the pitfalls as well. I just thought I'd look back at our business pre-COVID, and I suppose we are one of those stories that this did bring a significant change to our business. But pre-COVID, we were, I think, reasonably typical. We delivered, we're a multidisciplinary allied health service. We provided services to individuals, physios, physiotherapy, dietetics, ex-phys to our local community. We actually delivered services also to community groups such as sporting clubs, representative sporting teams, national teams, and Newcastle Knights, schools, other veterans groups and other local events that we participated in, to organisations. So not only are we a clinical practice, we've got a workplace services arm, which I'll talk about a little bit more, and I'll talk about some of the technology that we've developed for that. But we deliver health and health consulting services across a number of industry sectors, including mining, utilities, transport, and construction. To general practice, we partner with in multidisciplinary healthcare services with general practice, with medical specialists, with orthopaedic surgeons in terms of rehabilitation, our cardiology, oncology specialists as well to deliver some complementary healthcare, with private health insurers. So we deliver our rehab at home program for some private health insurers, and we've piloted some chronic disease management programs in collaboration with private health insurers, and I'll talk to that a little bit further later. And also some private hospitals. We've partnered with these private hospitals to increase their allied health capability and on-call staffing for emergency departments. So I suppose we're a reasonably broad church, delivering a range of allied health services. What did COVID do? Well, it significantly, I suppose it put a big squeeze on our services. There's no doubt about that. I think during the course of that, I think some of our partners and payers really were rethinking their models. So we're seeing some payers, such as private health insurers, become players or providers in the market as well, which was, I suppose, squeezing us a little bit, as well as other private hospital groups were looking to provide allied health services. So that certainly, that was part of our model back in 2019, but that's certainly changed now. And then our constant pursuit of a service that is accessible, replicable and scalable. So what is our approach now and how's it changed? And I thought this background was really important for our technology journey. But our purpose and why we exist, we really had not a rethink, but really get connected with this, because And we establish that, why we exist is just keeping people healthy, happy, and safe. That's primarily what we do. And the safety element comes from, if we're keeping people healthy in a workplace, it also keeps them happier and also safer in regards to our health services that we provide. And I'll talk a bit more about those in a minute. And then we sort of reset our aspirations in our vision, and we said, right, well, in 5 years' time at the time, we want to be a global leader in value-based healthcare. And it was a bit audacious, and we really wanted to stretch ourselves. We wanted to be known for next generation client management. And I want to talk to the things that we've done over the course of the last 3 years to, I suppose, position ourselves in that area. And we want to keep people healthy and safe, and we want to deliver capability with care. What hasn't changed is probably our foundations. So we provide our clinical services, our physio-dietetics, EP, and quickly that's sort of started to transition. Our rehab at home service is still a physiotherapy service, but we've defined that quite differently because it operates very differently than our clinic as such. And our CFIT or Cancer Fit, and that's delivering exercise classes to oncology patients. So our workplace services, we deliver a range of things here, but they are human factors, so health and wellbeing programs into workplaces, injury prevention and management, of course, our physios tend to lead that, fatigue risk management, and that is a human factor. We work with a lot of organisation and shift workers and trying to position those people to best or be as resilient as they can to shift work. On-site clinics for injury prevention and management, and health screening, so pre-employment and periodic medicals. So that's remained the same. So what we do is the same. How we do it has changed. So previously, our strategic pillars were really centered around people and systems. And I think in the last 3 years, this is where technology's really started to play a part in our business. So now our strategy is all about finding clever solutions to enable people systems with technology to deliver accessible, scale and repeatable patient outcomes. And it might be new versions of our foundation service or completely new services. As they mature, these opportunities become, foundations, and we continue to see those evolve as well. So this little, I suppose, brand house that we call it, in 2019, we were looking to, I suppose, spread our wings by creating bricks and mortar and new clinics. No longer are we doing that. We're consolidating that all to one practice in our Newcastle-based practice. We're actually moving this weekend to a new centre of excellence where we can really focus, rather than spreading the base of our business, building layers on top of that, and hopefully doing that with technology. I think one of the things that we often have and we considered is that, right, what is health technology and where does it actually fit? Because it's not the only thing. And when you actually look at, we call these our qualifying principles. If we're now looking at initiatives or health provision into the future, we actually look at this model and qualify against this and say, is the service that we're delivering value for money? Is there a system? Is there people and technology that can support it? And we want to be always, as a foundation, having customer satisfaction at the foundation of what we're doing. And then we actually look at this to qualify it and say, is what we are developing here scalable? Is it accessible, not only to our region but more broadly to outside of our region, and accessible to people, no matter where they are, but also replicable as well, and having at the pinnacle of that always patient outcomes as the centerpiece of what we're looking to do. So now coming to digitising our practice. I suppose we put this in two buckets, and we have done, is operational excellence, and that is digitising our clinical notes system, using SharePoint. And that's not only sharing documents, but collaboration with our team, no matter where they are, if they're at home, during the COVID pandemic, and now, hopefully we're starting to transcend that. We can still work and collaborate and attract people to our business, but also just overall governance for our business as well, and using SharePoint effectively. telehealth and webinars, of course, but also our program, which is some of our internal digital technology. So Care Team is a platform that we've developed, and basically what it looks to do is help with the design and implementation of multidisciplinary healthcare programs. And what effectively it does is it's a secure collection portal, it's sharing, management, reporting, and also the analysis of patient data. So it's all centralised, and we can spend more time looking at insights and how we can improve the system and the service that we're providing, rather than just focusing on the delivery and not knowing what the outcomes are with regards to our patients. So hopefully we're on this continuous improvement loop with regards to our Care Team program. It supports, and I don't think I've written them all down, but things like our health risk assessment as patients come into our business, our fatigue risk assessment for our fatigue products, our online Ergo assessment. During COVID, we previously had physios that would go out and do Ergo assessments in workplaces for people. Now we've digitised that. They can do it online. Our physios can assess that remotely. Rehab at home, all the data is input to that. So now we're looking at the data and seeing how our clinicians are performing out in the field and how we can continuously improve that. Residential aged care services, so we've digitised our nutrition and meal satisfaction, meal timing screening, our hydration checklists, and pressure injury assessment and nutrition assessments. So essentially, there's a real governance or clinical governance and compliance with what we're doing. And also looking at just process evaluation, how we can continuously improve, and patient satisfaction, so our PREMs and PROMs. And then the other side of things, and what I will talk about today, is just how we're digitising our products and services. So the services that we provide, our health and wellbeing services within workplaces, our Move Safe, so that's our injury prevention, early intervention, accelerated recovery service, but also our fatigue technology. How do we automate the implementation of fatigue risk management and support people manage shift work and fatigue within the work environment? One of the other things that we've really discovered, and we used to reflect upon this McKinsey model of 3 horizons, and used to wonder how it could ever apply to our business, but with the integration of technology, we're really seeing the benefits. And what this slide's trying to represent is there's this ever-changing world. The first horizon is all about just maintaining and strengthening our core business, and we're doing that with our digital technologies to hopefully make our services more efficient and more effective as well. But the second part to the McKinsey model is explore and discover, and how can we see a completely whole new horizon? And I can very much say with the creation of some of our digital platforms, it has created a whole new horizon for us. So we built these platforms, and all of a sudden we're providing a whole different layer of services, and I'll give a couple of examples in a minute. And then off the back of that, there's creating entirely new possibilities and competencies that we never thought we may have as a business. We sort of always thought that it might be someone else's business or a big business to do this. But certainly, and in a reasonably short space of time, our competency certainly grew. So one example, I suppose, is our physio services, which is Horizon 1. We built a platform to collect all the data with our rehab at home services and how our clinicians are performing out in the field, and reporting some of that service, now able to report that data and gain insights from that. And now, we've built a platform that other providers could use, so they can assess their service and build and expand that service beyond the Newcastle region, effectively, of where our clinic is. The second example, I suppose, is we always provided fatigue risk management services to individuals and training to companies, and that often required flying all around Australia to really remote mine sites or transport or construction or whatever that might be. So what we actually did there is we built an application for them to automate their implementation. So that's Horizon 2. And we thought that was going to be a killer app. But as soon as we built that, it brought about a whole range of other questions from the people we're providing services to create entirely new services. And I'll give you, I'll just walk people through what that's like, you know, by the end of the presentation. And then one of the other services is just our workplace training. So we were delivering manual handling and injury prevention training at Horizon 1. We digitized that training Horizon 2. And now, rather than, and our fatigue risk management training, we did the same. Now, rather than having to send highly competent people out to really remote areas and being away from home for, you know, large parts of the year and doing it on a site-by-site basis, now we're doing it on not a site-by-site basis, but a company-by-company basis. And, you know, we've now got our consultants focused on the next item to how do we improve to ensure people are getting this information and knowledge, but what else can we do to ensure that there aren't injuries, there's not fatigue, risk within workplaces, etc. So it has certainly just changed the way we think about our service delivery. I did mention one of our aspirations is this new generation of patient management. We've incorporated and used a model, step care, that's not new to anybody. And just stratifying people as they're coming into our business and, you know, what they need. So depending upon their acuity or what their needs are, we're actually providing different layers of services. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a minute. So, and those services to low risk presentations might be online services. And you know, and what we're providing to at-risk people, so we're providing online training to people with identified risks, so digitised risk assessments, to high-risk patients where they're getting, they can assess themselves, but then get virtual consultations with our specialists. And then if they're identified at severe or complex risk, we can refer them on for multidisciplinary care. And we've generally done this in consultation with our users, and I'll give you an example of that before the presentation's done. So some of the outcomes in this next generation client management, the top left-hand corner there is our fatigue tech platform, and I'm going to just have a little bit of a walk through that platform in a minute. So we're delivering that to a number of multinational companies now. And prior to COVID, we were just doing that site by site, you know, as each site may have needed that. So those discussions have certainly changed, and our capability and scale and the replicability of that has certainly advanced. Our Healthy Families for Life is a service that we now provide online for HCF. And it is really focused on a provision of service to parents who have concern around nutritional practices of their children, and that's Australia-wide. To now digitising our training is the second layer there on the left, our care team program, which I've talked to, which supports our rehab at home program. And I think the bottom right-hand corner now is just how we're linking some of that data using technologies like Power BI, which is off the shelf, to actually create dashboards. So we're actually gaining insights on a daily basis to actually shape our services and really zone in on the things that are making a big difference to client outcomes. So what I thought I'd just do is focus on one thing, and it's probably our most developed platform. And this has come about just through some of our corporate client demands. They wanted to automate their workplace fatigue risk management system. Fatigue's a human factor, so looking after human health will improve workers' resilience to fatigue. There's three primary problems that present for workplaces. One is implementing their workplace fatigue mitigation strategy. So does the workplace actually implement the procedure they say that they're going to do? Do they have the ability to measure and demonstrate that they're compliant with those workplace procedures, and just to see if they're effective? So that was the first thing that we looked to develop as an app to support them do that. But very quickly from that second horizon became the third one. They were saying, well, people take themselves home from work. How can we engage and support workers to help them better manage personal fatigue risk factors? and what can we do with people who have had multiple fatigue events or incidents, and how can we help them? And the third component was how can we train the workforce about fatigue risk factors really efficiently? So how can we streamline that to get them to competency levels with little impact on their operations and on those individuals? So what I might just do with 5 minutes is I'm going to go to, sorry, I'll bring this up. Oh, so, sorry, that was the platform. Can everyone see that platform? I'm
Yeah, that
hoping you
looks good.
can. Yep.
All
Terrific.
good.
So what we're doing is the sole aim of this is to automate their fatigue risk management system. So how can we present a really easy way to implement, monitor and manage their fatigue risk factors? So those 3 problems that they faced is here. So what I really want to focus on, this is just online training in LMS. I'm not going to focus on that. This is the workplace technology to enable them to implement their workplace procedure. The thing I want to focus on this 5 minutes is the personal risk factors and how we support and engage individuals to help manage their fatigue risk. As you can see down here, there's that step care model. So the low risk presentation, we're helping with self-help resources using our knowledge centre. The at-risk people, we refer through to the competency-based training. The identified risk, they can do personal fatigue assessments with guided self-help. The at-risk, they do their personal fatigue assessments, but then can get online and have a consultation with a fatigue specialist. And then if it's identified that they're severe or complex, they can be referred for multidisciplinary care. So just to give you an idea, our knowledge centre used to be in booklets. We used to have to present to people, distribute those booklets. They wouldn't always have them on, but if they've got the application now, they can get on. There's topics in a broad array of areas that impact upon fatigue, and they can get onto the knowledge centre now and search on any item. So I've just searched on caffeine. Every bit of information that has caffeine in it will come up, and they can have a look at, right, how does caffeine affect my sleep? So they can read a couple of short paragraphs, see how it affects their sleep, and then read up on some of the solutions. So that can be done in any regard in the Knowledge Centre. If they say, well, I want a little bit more information than just searching through a Knowledge Centre, I wouldn't mind doing a personal risk assessment. So they can come in here, they can complete a personal risk assessment. It looks at all the modifiable health risk factors. We use validated tools across all of these different risk factors. And once they actually complete the survey, they will get an automated report that actually ranks their different risk factors across all their modifiable health risk factors that will contribute to fatigue. And then it gives them and points them to self-help information depending upon what their risks are and their scores in the different areas. If I go back, the other key risk factor in individual fatigue risk is their journey to and from work. In fact, they're 11 times more likely to have a fatigue-related incident going to and from work than they are actually at work. So we do have a journey management plan as well that they can complete. It identifies hazards and control measures that they can put in as individuals to not only optimise their health, but optimise their safety as they're going to and from work. And then the third component is if they recognise risk factors and they identify that they'd like a consultation, and if it's supported by their workplace with a subject matter expert, they can come in for our consultation and come and so they schedule an appointment. At that appointment time, they can come into the platform, start the video consultation. Those supervisors with access, they will have a Refer an Employee tab as well. So if anyone's identified within their workplace at high risk, they can refer an employee. We can contact them, book them in for an appointment and undertake that video consultation no matter where they are. You know, whether they're remote in rural or regional or remote areas, we can actually, and they can get access to that specialised care. So that concludes my presentation, and it just provides one example, but we see the step care model and we're looking to roll that out amongst, within all the provision of our health services, whether that be in our clinic or in our other health and wellbeing, in the musculoskeletal prevention and management as well, just so our clients are supported with more information. So yeah, I'll take any questions if any have come up.
Thank you. So what surprises has this journey brought for you?
A lot of surprises, actually. I think I think one of the biggest surprises is, we only took this challenge on prior to COVID, and I think one of the surprises is how quickly digitising things builds upon itself. So, we had a lot of this intellectual property in our business, but a lot of people have looked at our fatigue risk management system and said, geez, you guys must have spent a lot of time on that. But honestly, it was a matter of just consolidating that into one platform. So it was all the stuff we had and bringing it and consolidating it together. I think the other part is that engaging in digital health is a never-ending story. So once you're in it, you're in it. And there's this continuous improvement loop because you're constantly getting feedback. And there's no doubt there's the Apple effect. Everybody expects it to work perfectly, and if it doesn't, oh boy, they let you know. So that client feedback comes through thick and fast, and I think that's something that we didn't get when we didn't have those digital platforms from our clients as much. I think they just didn't return. But now if it's not working and they want access to it, they let us know. So we've got to really keep adapting it and improving it for continuous improvement.
Okay, and I guess this kind of overlaps into that, but how did you handle the barriers that you came up against?
Those barriers, I think having the right personnel, I think we got a little bit lucky. And, at the start, I say it's lucky. We actually outsourced. We attempted prior to COVID, probably 5 years prior to it, to outsource some of this. We had aspirations to digitalise what we were doing, and I must say we wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to do that. We actually binned the entire aspiration of digitalising things. And what we actually end up doing is that there was a client of one of our clinicians who had mentioned that they do a little bit of technology, and we're having a discussion with them, and they said, oh, I could develop that I could have a prototype for you next week of that. That's easy. And, a bit hurt by our prior experience, we thought, oh, well, we may as well give it a go. And a week later, this particular individual came back with a prototype. Now that individual is now our Chief Technology Officer and in charge of our digital team, which is now 3 strong. And we've got a number of other clinicians who have been upskilled in some of, from a digital capacity around program development. So I think we did get a little lucky, I think, but we were, I suppose, had dabbled in that. So I think there are some pitfalls. You want to be careful of that. But I think with every advancement we get, then there's a greater expectation. So we're going through a process of ISO standards because the clients who we're dealing with now are expecting that. So the journey just continues.
Fantastic. And the last question I've got for you is, what was the hardest part of your journey so far?
I think, starting, failing, and we did fail monumentally, and we had to pick ourselves back off the canvas and just give it another go. And I think, and you do hear of that story, but I think it's one that, accepting, I think, one of the biggest mistakes we made is we didn't probably fail fast enough in the first instance and burnt a lot of cash. But also I think is, consulting with people that have been there before. So, we're an open book now. If anyone has any questions, by all means, reach out, flick an email, give us a phone call. Be happy to discuss more our experience, and if it helps others develop, and that's what this webinar is about, develop technology and innovate in healthcare. We really want to promote that, because we think if we create that, and certainly within the Hunter, New England and Central Coast, I'd love to see that hub created here. It'll only springboard and help us develop more and more innovative health technologies in the future.
Great, thank you. And there's a great comment here saying sometimes adversity leads to great outcomes. So I think that's quite relevant. Okay, thank you so much. We're going to now hand over to Damien Goff. He has a background in podiatry, and he's our co-chair for the PHN in the Allied Health Advisory Group. So over to you, Damien. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm figuring out my screen sharing, and
yep.
Let's
looks
see
good.
What you can see now. You can see my slide, my first slide.
All
good. See that?
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you. I have presented this in a shorter form at the We Care Together conference a few months ago, so I apologise if there's a little bit of repetition at the beginning for those of you who may have been there or have seen the replay. But I want to talk about online forms and how just about any practice could integrate some kind of online form into their patient onboarding or their patient experience, and how it helps people to be more efficient and appear more professional. About 20 years ago, I won a raffle and got to do a harbour bridge climb. That was actually a really valuable prize. I've just looked, it's about $300 to do that these days. Now, this photograph was taken not that long ago. You can see the Aboriginal flag flying on top of the bridge there, which was a bit of a novelty. And now, when it was a novelty when I took that photograph, now it flies constantly, which is good to hear. I went to take part in this harbour bridge climb. They've got a great process that they take you through of preparing you, and part of that process is you've got to fill in a form, and you've got to and it's sort of like a safety briefing form that you've got to fill in your name and your contact details and your date of birth and sign it, and that's all good. But then we went on to the next step, and there was another form to fill in, and I had to fill in my name and contact details again and sign it. And oh, fair enough, but they've got that information now. Now, once we'd completed the harbour bridge climb, unfortunately, they gave us another form. It was their appraisal form, where I also had to put in my name and the contact details and sign it. And at this point, I thought, well, I've had a good time. I don't want to sit here for 10 minutes filling in your form, especially with information you've already got. So I just wrote on it that there was too many forms to fill in. But the lesson that I learned from that was that people get frustrated if you ask them for the same piece of information more than once. Now, there's a way that we can get around that now by using digital means and going paperless. And I vowed that in my business, in my practice, I would really try and never ask people for the same information. I know that there are some cases where you do need to double check people's names and date of birth and things, particularly so if you're administering medication and that kind of thing, and I appreciate that, but there's no need for them to be filling in forms more than once. Now, sometimes you get forms at places and they're really badly photocopied and the text diagonal on the page, and they're asking you for information you've already provided. And there are ways that in this day and age where most practices are digitalised, you can provide people with a form that already has the information that the practice has is automatically completed. And the way that we used to do this in our podiatry practice is we would use the practice management system, and we would import you know, name, address, date of birth, any information that we already had into the paper form. So using a letter template, which is something you may be familiar with, and then that meant the patient, you know, we would have a greeting with the patient's name at the top of the page, and that personalized things for them and allowed them to correct any mistakes that we had in our system. Now, paper forms are, you know, something that we're used to, but the inefficiencies of filling in a piece of paper and then having to send it somewhere, or to keep it somewhere safe and then remember to bring it with you somewhere that you're going, is awkward. There are risks around that sort of not getting completed or getting lost, as you know. The other aspect of a paper form, if it's presented to someone when they arrive at your practice, is that, you know, they've got to take time to fill it in. They may be feeling a little bit anxious. They might not get everything right. They might not have all the information available with them, and maybe just not in the right sort of state of mind to complete that form. So when they're just about to go to an appointment, my screen just flickered a hype. Everything's good. I'm coming to you, I should say.
Damien.
All good?
All good.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll continue. The paper forms can get lost. That's thrown me off me. And whereas if people are coming into your practice, they may not have all the information. That's right. So if they're completing something at home, they've got time to gather everything together. A digital form is something that they can come back to if they've the same as a paper form. Once it's done and it's sent, so it can't get lost. You can send people an acknowledgement that they've received, that you've received the form from them. So it makes things much more efficient when they actually turn up at your practice. The other thing that we've found is that digital forms now are accessible in the way that paper forms are not. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, most of us who use computers these days have access to some type of online form platform. Now, I've listed here some of the common practice management platforms that are used by allied health practices. It's not comprehensive, but these are some of the bigger, I suppose, platforms, and most of them have some kind of built-in patient form, online form, where you can develop a form and then send it to your patients. If you don't have this type of practice management system, but you do have a Gmail account and access to Google Forms, Sheets, then you can set up an online form in your Google account. If you have Microsoft Office, then you can access Microsoft Forms through the Excel spreadsheet platform, where you develop a form which completes the spreadsheet for you. So there are lots of ways that you can get easy access to an online form platforms. If you don't have Google, Microsoft, or any of these practice management systems, there's a platform known as JotForm, which I'm familiar with, which I've found to be excellent. Even the free version allows you to do all kinds of things. It's very powerful, and I'll show you a little bit of that later. Okay, so we're still talking about the the benefits of online forms. So the patient will enter the information. So what the patient enters is what you get It means there's no trouble with dodgy handwriting, transcription, or the double or triple management of information between, the patient, the admin team, the practice management system, the clinician. You can get specific information prior to the patient arriving so that you can be better prepared for their visit to you. The other thing is that they are better prepared because they're starting to think about why they're coming to see you and what sort of expectations they have, what they're hoping to achieve. This demonstrates your professionalism and efficiency because you are already prepared for their visit because you've got information from them prior to the consultation. Essentially, you've started their consultation before they even come to see you, and you're ready to crack on with things when they arrive. They're going to be a bit more invested in the whole process. I mean, part of the reason we brought these online forms in, or this type of contact prior to an appointment, particularly with new patients, is that some people would make an appointment and then just not turn up. So engaging with them in this way means they're already invested in the process a bit further, and you're much likely to have them come through the door at their appointment time. The OTs and the speechies are probably across this a lot better than I am, but accessibility can be built into online forms with technology like screen readers and speech to text programs, which are, Microsoft includes, it's part of Windows. You just, although there are much better sort of standalone platforms for this type of thing, screen readers and speech to text, it means that an online form is accessible to vision impaired and even low literacy people, where a paper form may not be. The other thing that you can do with forms is, because the responses will end up in some kind of database or spreadsheet, you can actually analyze the information you get over time. And so it helps you to see trends and see where your marketing or education needs to focus. Now, online forms, if you are collecting clinical information, it's still no substitute for your usual face-to-face clinical interview, history taking. You're really just setting the scene with these forms. But the thing to remember with the forms is, in designing the forms, you're only going to get what you ask for. And in this example, one of our patrons wanted to be known as a supreme galactic ruler, which was fine with the podiatrist at the time, who was keen on Doctor Who and sci-fi type things. Now, just to talk a little bit about the process. So someone books an appointment with you by any method really, but you need to be getting as a minimum, a mobile phone number or an email address. Most people have an email address. I think 84% of people over 75 had a smartphone in 2019, and how things have changed since then. So most people have access to this type of technology. You send them an email or a text message with a link to your online form. We've used a sort of a branded short link here, which I can talk a bit more about if someone's got any questions about that. It makes them more likely to click a link if it looks like it's authentic. We get so much spam even in our SMS, text messages these days. So I find it's good to make it look authentic. So the patient completes the form by clicking the link and going through the questions. The form might look like, let's have a look at this. Can you see a form on the screen that I'm sharing now?
Yes, welcome to cheese
Toad
podiatry.
cheese podiatry. Good. So
Yes.
this is this is what the form's going to look like, and it's easy to tick boxes, radio buttons, etc., and you work your way through that. It looks very similar on a mobile phone. Are we back to slides now?
Yes.
Great. How good is this technology? Good. So they'll fill in the form, and then, I mean, we're all familiar with these things. We've filled them in, you know, every time we checked in, doing a COVID check-in, we filled in an online form. That's, you know, why we've got a huge proportion of the population that's much more familiar with this type of thing than they used to be. Now, it'll put the responses from the form either into a row in the spreadsheet, or it might sync direct with your practice management software and actually, you know, populate a patient record in your practice management system. Either way, you know, you've got some kind of soft document or information which you can manipulate for your admin team. Very briefly, this is some of the technology. So a field is an area that contains an answer or a value. They can be short text, they can be radio buttons where there's only one answer. It could be a drop-down list, again, where there's just a single answer. Check boxes where you can tick more than one, usually. Paragraphs or long text answers where you might write a little bit more about your experience, or list medication, that type of thing. You can make some questions required or compulsory. You can also make them, you know, optional. Response validation is a way of checking that the answer is valid. So if you ask for a phone number, it makes sure there's a string of numbers there. Conditional logic is a way of describing how you change the questions that appear according to previous answers. There's heaps and heaps of stuff on YouTube and or in your practice management systems help support pages to teach you a lot more about this. And, you know, this is just the nitty-gritty of getting it done. This is the important stuff, I think, designing your forms. The process, you know, start with pen and paper or post-it notes, I prefer, and design your questions on there. Make them patient focused, so they're easy to answer, and they are the first questions in the order are the questions that the patient wants answered. It's a bit difficult to think about this because we usually develop a form to match perhaps the front page of our notes or our patient record or our practice management. And really that's, you know, that serves your admin team really well, but it doesn't serve the patient well. The patient wants to talk about themselves and their problems, so let them do that first. Use plain language, be inclusive and be accessible. I can't reiterate this enough. Ask the clinical questions first. So ask the questions the patient wants answered first, then they're much more likely to give you more complete information. Now, talking about being inclusive, there are a lot of different guidelines around this LGBTQI plus inclusive questioning. The answers of the questions need to be around, you know, sex, where people are female, male, non-binary, and then please give an option to expand further on non-binary, because it's really difficult to include all the options in a drop-down list. And the last thing you want to do is to exclude somebody because you didn't have the option there in your question. Likewise, gender, I think it's useful to, you know, woman, man, and self-described, and then give someone the ability to actually complete a text box giving you the information that you need. Pronouns that people prefer to use is a good question to ask, but you can make it optional. Talking about marital status, if you need to ask that question, using terms like partner and domestic partnership, as well as, spouse, husband, wife. And really, if you don't need to know, then maybe you don't need to ask the question. One thing I would say overall is not a lot of these form building tools give you the option to add other at the end of a list. I mean, nobody wants to be that other person, so to use the other. You can get a lot more information about this. The PHN's running some training next month. Please, you can use the QR code there, scan that, and that'll take you to the registration page. As well as that, there was just come out recently, there's Pride membership LGBTQ inclusive care coaching through Pride in Health and Wellbeing. So you've got to put in an expression of interest before the 4th of August. There's 10 free memberships being offered. So if you're keen to get involved, get onto that. That's my little plug for the PHN and what they're up to at the moment. Being inclusive of First Nations people, there is best practice guidelines for how to ask these questions, and essentially the answers should be no, yes Aboriginal, yes Torres Strait Islander, or yes both Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. There is that if you look up the reference here, I mean, it's an old reference, but it doesn't seem to have been improved on in the last 12 years. People with disabilities and low literacy, you think, well, online forms are brilliant because of screen reading technology and speech to text tools, but there are a few little tips to make things accessible. Some of the platforms you can actually make the whole form accessible just by clicking a button. But some of the quick tips are that you should always have the label to the question outside of the answer box. That way the screen readers will pick it up. When it's in the answer box, as soon as you start typing, it disappears, so the screen reader can't see it. When things are optional, say that they're optional. That's helpful. Use descriptive error messages if people don't fill in a box. There are some great resources at Vision Australia about how to make your forms more accessible. And like I said, it's not just vision impaired people. People with low literacy might find that using a screen reader and speech to text enables them to complete these forms more fully. Finally, when you get to your submit button, I'm not sure I like the word submit, but couldn't think of anything better. There's something we should probably think around. Send the people when they've completed the form to either a thank you page, which is a bit boring, or to a specific like landing page or web page on your website, which might give them information about what to expect when they come to see you. To get there, it might give them information about the practitioner that they're actually going to see. It just helps engage them in the process and helps make sure they turn up on the day. Reporting and analytics, these are, you pull the data from, having collected information from, 50 or 100 patients, and however long that takes, and it can inform your future marketing and helps make sure that you're providing the things that the patients actually want. So in the here we go. Let's run quickly back to the questionnaire. We'll see if I can hear that. I mean, there's a first question on this next section is, what outcome are you hoping for from your appointment? And this is really informative, because we think we know what our patients want, but it's amazing when you actually give them an option to tell you what they want before they come to see you. We talked about conditional logic briefly. Here's a question: are you completing this form as a patient's parent or carer? If you click yes here, 2 more questions appear for the carer or parent's name and phone number. This kind of thing is really useful. I'm going back to my final slide, where I'm just going to say thank you very much for listening to me. We're almost out of time. If anyone's got any further questions, I'm quite happy to answer. I'm happy to get in touch and come and see you, have a look at your practice to guide you through the process. The link there to the form that I've been flicking backwards and forwards to, and the QR code will take you there as well. If you want to see how that form, which was a kind of a mock-up and the start of what we used to use in the podiatry practice. If there's 3 things I'd like you to take away from this, is don't ask for the same information more than once. Don't ask questions that, do ask the questions that the patient or client wants answered first, and use the information wisely to improve everybody's experience. So yours, your admin teams, your clinicians, and your patients. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Damien. Yep, thanks, Damien. Really appreciate it. I'll just go to the questions for you now. Are there any interpreting options for CALD clients?
I think that probably Google Forms, although we all know what Google Translate is like.
Yeah. Yes.
I wonder if that's not something I'm aware of.
Okay,
Sorry.
and then the second part was, does the software offer language options?
Language options, yeah. I think that Jotform offers language options in its paid version. I think that Microsoft and Google are big enough companies that they should, but I really can't say, and that's I'm afraid unfortunate. Yeah, this is obviously an issue for people in some areas.
Okay, and the last question, the final question, is in regards to privacy. How do you navigate that, the privacy issues?
Yeah, we've got privacy standards here in Australia, and I think that we need to sort of refer to like the HIPAA, which is the US standard, or the GDPR, which was the European standard, and there are compliance with those standards in Google, in Microsoft, and in Jotform. I think it comes around to how you can access the data. So if it's behind 2-factor authentication, did I say that right? 2-factor authentication. So
yes.
You know, you log in on your screen, plus you get a code on your phone. 2-factor authentication means that you're doing everything you can to keep that information secure.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I wanted to thank everyone for being here with us this evening, and thank you to all the presenters for your time and effort. A lot goes into these events in the background, and we really appreciate it. Just a reminder to please complete the survey at the end. That's how we get our further data to be able to implement further events for you. And also, the recording will be available with a copy of the presentations in the coming days on our website in our education library. So good night, everyone. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.